Welcome to Breaking Money Silence, a podcast series dedicated to helping all of us talk more openly about money. Each show features a special guest who will share with you one of their favorite money myths. Then together we'll discuss how to bust that myth wide open. My name is Kathleen Kingsbury, and I am your host. My company, KBK Wealth Connection, is committed to helping women, couples, families, and their financial teams shatter money taboos and learn how to effectively talk about money. It is an honor today to be joined by Rhonda Nordyke. Let me tell you a little bit about Rhonda before we get into her particular myth and welcome her to the show. It's exciting to talk to her. We met actually online, and so Rhonda brings over a decade of financial industry and higher education experience to the marketplace. She's done a bunch of different things, but in 2014, she opened the Women's Financial Wellness Center, which you've got to know I would absolutely love that concept, and it's committed to helping alleviate the financial vulnerability of divorcing women by providing a safe environment where they can acquire financial knowledge and learn practical tools. In addition to that, those in the center also have access to a team of financial wellness experts and holistic collaborative partners. Rhonda has also developed a workshop series which helps these women examine their attitudes and beliefs about money and helps them walk through the step-by-step process that they'll go through as they're divorcing. Rhonda has been featured on Fox 6, News, Studio A, and Morning Blend, and now I want to welcome her to Breaking Money Silence. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for us to connect, and I have lots of questions about your wellness center, but I'm going to stay on task for what we're do today, which is examine your myth. So the myth that you provided that you want to examine today is really interesting to me. It's financial literacy is only for those in poverty. So tell me a little bit about what motivated you to pick this myth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I'm working with women, one of the exercises that I take them through is helping them identify what their passion is. And so when we look at both ends of the spectrum as it relates to that, what energizes you and what frustrates you, this myth actually fires on both cylinders for me. And so what I do is I look for trends and look for opportunities to be able to see if there's ways that we can influence current paradigms and challenge some of those paradigms. And so there were really three independent situations that left me unsettled and determined to dispel this myth, which was financial literacy is only for people in poverty. So
tell me a little bit more about those situations.
Yeah, so really there's three situations. The first one was where I had applied for a women's entrepreneurial grant, and the grant was designed for women business owners, and so I had to submit a 20-page business plan and a 5-minute video. And the panel that was evaluating that criteria, if you will, was made up of financial professionals, bankers, and CPAs. And what was interesting was at the conclusion of this process, several of the panelists came up to me and said, "Hey, Rhonda, we have a question for you. And the question is, how do you anticipate that your model is going to generate revenue?" And while that certainly is a valid question, what I realized after having more conversation with them was that they were bringing their mindset about financial literacy to the table, which was they had served on literacy boards, they had volunteered for financial wellness fairs, and some of them had actually provided financial counseling. However, the mindset that they brought to the table was it should be free, it should be a nonprofit, and it should be for those in poverty. And so I left there thinking, wow, that's interesting. And a lot of times I leave those situations not exactly knowing what to do with that.
That is really interesting. And, when you say that, I have to just validate that I certainly have heard this myth before and experienced that as well. So where else did you run into this myth?
Yeah, so the second example was I had attended a financial coaching session at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And there were 25 people from across the country, all of which were from nonprofit organizations for financial literacy and education, except for me. And I was the only person there that had a for-profit business model. Everybody else worked with people that were in poverty. So we had the opportunity to do several small group discussions, and I found myself having several fairly robust conversations that financial literacy isn't only for people that are in poverty. And a lot of the women that I work with that are going through divorce or have lost a spouse are in that spot. They are searching for information. They lack confidence. They don't know where to go. They feel shame and guilt because they feel like they should know more. And so on the drive home from that program, I found myself reflecting on all the great tools that I learned that we've been able to use in our practice, but also the fact that there was yet another need for a paradigm shift.
Yes, no, absolutely. And what's interesting to me is just to throw in a little research here that you probably know as well. But one survey that recently I reviewed said that of all Americans surveyed, so that's a subset of Americans, but and they were not a group of folks who were they were mass affluent, I believe, that 35% of women and 39% of men passed the financial literacy exam. So in other words, a very large portion of these, what shall we call middle-class citizens needed financial literacy training as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not surprised. And certainly I've heard that statistic as well. And the women that are coming through our center, they are in that spot for sure. So
it may be obvious, it may not be obvious to the listeners. Tell us a little bit about kind of how you see this myth actually impacting you personally as well as professionally, and or how it's impacting these women you're trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because, really one of the other components of this that I've experienced is that, the banks in my community and really around the country were encouraged to participate in the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. And again, they were encouraged to pour back into the community in which they were chartered to be able to help low to moderate income neighborhoods. And so the impact for the women that we're serving has been interesting because they don't fall into that specific category. So the challenge is that the women are falling through the cracks. They maybe don't fall into that traditional kind of wealth management opportunity, and they also aren't being recognized as low to moderate income. So, like you had mentioned, Kathleen, the women of all backgrounds are in need of financial literacy. And one example that I can give you is I met with a woman recently whose husband had passed away. She was 63 years old. She's a working professional. She has her master's in nursing. She's currently working as a college instructor. And she's the perfect example for dispelling the myth. She's well educated, and yet she's falling through the cracks because, again, she isn't on two of those extremes. She falls in the middle. And, she says, hey, I make a fair salary, but I'm still concerned about taxes. I'm still concerned about retirement. And she's never received any financial education, formal or informal. So it's impacting the people, really in the community for sure.
Well, and it's that gap, and I love that word because it is true. It's like, are you affluent enough to be served by a financial services professional that might build in some of this financial literacy training for the next generation, which you would then benefit as part of that as a parent or a relative, or are you poor enough or, struggling enough to be able to access some of these free services? So I think it's really great that you're filling the gap. Now, I always ask every person who comes on the upside of their myth. So usually what ends up happening with a money myth is there's ways in which it gets in the way, and clearly there's this gap that you're trying to fill, that it's getting in the way of these women that you're serving. But is there any way in which somebody who believes financial literacy is only for those in poverty, is there any way in which that could be helpful for an individual or a institution? Or because there's usually some sort of short-term kind of gain that we get out of a myth.
Yeah, I think And that's a great question. I think there definitely is the opportunity for them to be able to provide, education to the masses. But traditionally, that model is to reach as many people as possible on the front end. So they're reaching a lot of people. I guess maybe that's the upside to it. But they're not necessarily going deep and walking them step by step through the process. So yeah, again, having participated in several, workshops or conferences, Money Smart Week and stuff like that, their goal is to reach a lot of people. So I guess that might be the upside.
Okay, so the upside is you reach a lot of people. I also see, and this is a little bit more kind of individual financial psychology, but I almost see this being a way for some people, if you believe that financial literacy is only for those in poverty and you're not in poverty, to somehow feel better about your relationship with money. Like, I have money, so I don't necessarily need to learn about it. It may or may not fit, but listeners out there, that might be one way in which it helps. But I think it's really interesting, Rhonda, in your experience, that it helps by reaching the masses, but not at a deep level. And clearly, given what you do and what I know, there is a lot to be, a lot of education that still needs to happen for men and women out there. So if somebody on the line is listening in today and they're identifying and they're going, geez, that's what I thought, or that's what I experienced as a woman or as somebody in financial services, what advice would you give them to help them bust that myth wide open?
Well, my belief is that everything starts with awareness. So it's exploring, their current attitudes and beliefs about this myth. And it's never comfortable. So it's getting uncomfortable to say, yeah, you know what, is that a myth that I believe? And it's at that time that we have the opportunity, I believe, to change. Either we continue to say, okay, well, I'm going to continue to believe the myth and own it, or I need to make some changes. So first of all, I would say becoming aware that you believe the myth. Second is making the decision to accept or reject it as truth, and then taking ownership, for our decisions.
I love that because it's so clear. Each step is very difficult, but an awareness is something that somebody could get today from kind of listening to us and going, maybe I do believe that on some level. And then here's the hard one that I think for most of us who are helping people change their relationship to money is really that tolerating of the discomfort. That sometimes when something doesn't feel good, we want to stop, but sometimes it's a sign that you're headed in the right direction, that you're changing, and then deciding. And I like the way you phrased it. Do I want to keep this myth? Because you're absolutely allowed to stay with whatever thought works for you. Or is it that maybe in the long run, changing to doing something differently would be better? So if you could reframe this for yourself, Rhonda, how would you reframe it? Like, what would be replacing this myth?
I would say that financial literacy is for everyone. And specifically for the women that we're serving, financial literacy is for women, right? We could say financial literacy is for men. But in alignment with our mission, financial literacy is for women at all walks of life, all stages of life, not just for those that are in poverty.
So tell me a little bit about how you started these workshops that I mentioned in your opening, the New Beginnings workshops, because it sounds interesting to me, and it sounds like you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah. So kind of a similar path as this myth. I was working with women. I was in the financial industry, and I found myself being very frustrated on behalf of women that were going through divorce or had lost a spouse. It felt like everything was very siloed. They weren't getting clear answers, and so I had a close friend of mine whose husband passed away suddenly, and she was 38 years old, and she said, Rhonda, I really want to be able to, help and empower other women. And I said, you know what? Let's do a focus group at your house. And she said that would be awesome. So we gathered several women, some that were going through divorce, some that had lost a spouse. And I spent probably 3 hours picking their brain. And I said, okay, what's working? What's not working? What do you feel like you still need? What do you feel like you're getting? And so I left there after 3 hours and boxes of Kleenex later, realizing that I felt extremely passionate and energized by helping these women. I should have probably left there feeling drained,
Yeah.
but but I didn't. And I'm like, we are going to find a way. So I tapped into my background in developing curriculum in higher education and my knowledge of the financial process, and developed a workshop called New Beginnings. And I've been facilitating that workshop now for 5 years. It is the one that I'm the most passionate about, and yet the one that I know that we need to duplicate so that we can help more women, because I'm one person. And so we're finally at a point where we are going to be developing, or have developed and are going to be offering, a train the trainer model for this program, because those paradigms that we've seen that have shifted during this workshop are life-changing. I mean, it's a game changer for these women, because I believe that if we can teach them how to think about money, that then they can move forward, they can make good decisions, we can still help them through that process, but we've broken through some of those barriers that they might be bringing to the table. And so the workshop's very holistic. It covers really 3 key pillars: awareness, being uncomfortable about where their current attitudes and beliefs are about money. And then we spend a significant amount of time on education, terminology, how to select an advisor, and then action. Okay, that's really great, but how can we, have action-driven results? And so we put together an action plan and then support them beyond the workshop. And I have all the tools to be able to help people do that, from a marketing plan in the beginning on how to market the program, to the processes and systems on how to cultivate those relationships after the workshop's over.
So you're really, it's almost like, and I don't, it's much more complicated than this, I think, but it's like workshop in a box. So if there's somebody out there that's listening, that is a financial advisor, an insurance person, maybe an attorney, or a therapist would be great, because therapists always need training on money psychology. If there's folks out there that have kind of those professions and are thinking, "Ooh, I'd love to bring this into my work," it sounds like that's your target audience for this Train the Trainer.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So tell folks who are listening where they can find out more information about New Beginnings, about your center, because there's so much that I think you're doing that's really great, and we only have a limited time today. So where can people jump off and kind of find out more about you?
Sure, absolutely. Well, they can visit the website. It's www.womensfinancialwellnesscenter.com, and they can find out more information about the New Beginnings workshop, but then also they can contact us through the website as well. So go to the contact tab and send me a message, and we will certainly get in touch with those individuals.
Excellent. I know you're also on LinkedIn, because that's how we connected. And what I love what you're doing, Rhonda, is I absolutely love that you are spreading the message, and I know it's primarily to women, but spreading the message that financial literacy is for everyone. And, if you think about the work that I'm doing around breaking money silence, I need partners like you who are really helping in the nitty gritty to get out there and kind of bust through these myths and help people learn what they need to learn and develop skills and take action. So it's really been wonderful to have you on the show today. I really appreciate it. And I encourage everybody who's listening, at a minimum, to just go check out the center at womensfinancialwellnesscenter.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for listening to Breaking Money Silence. I'm Kathleen Burns Kingsbury. I'm a wealth psychology expert and author dedicated to getting people talking about money matters. For more information about my book, speaking, and services, please visit kbkwealthconnection.com. Until next time, remember, we can all break money silence together. Thank you.